Hello everyone, I am usually referred to as TARDIS Sky123 and this is the review of Terror of the Autons. So it's 2016, it's been so for 2.5 months now, and that means that it has been 45 years since the Master first appeared on television back in 1971 with Terror of the Autons. Celebrations are underway, well, at Big Finish at least, probably not the TV series, it's probably getting a Christmas special this year. But yeah, you know, we've got the Two Masters trilogy coming up, we have the Master in Jago and Lightfoot Series 11, we have the Alternative Universe Master in the upcoming Bernie Summerfield Volume 3, The Unbound Universe. So quite a lot of things there, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a couple more announcements on the way, fingers crossed. But anyway, in my part of the celebrations, I am going back to where it all began with Terror of the Autons. So this is Roger Delgado's first appearance as the Master. It's also Katie Manning's first appearance as Joe Grant, Richard Franklin's first appearance as Mike Yates as well. So quite a few firsts in here. It's also the first return of the Autons, not the first Auton story. That happened last year with Spearhead from Space. So I'm guessing he wanted some familiar elements in this to sort of like kickstart this almost soft reboot of the Pertwee era in some ways. Because it's very different from what Series 7 presented us with, or Season 7 rather, which was very hard-edged style, and then here we get sort of like a very different style, but in its own way quite scary as well in the way it's done. And you know, while the plot is a little bit similar to Spearhead from Space, it is very different in its style at the same time, despite being only 1 year later, because this is sort of like when Barry Letts and Terrance Dicks really got hold of the Pertwee era and got to make Doctor Who their own, got to make it what they want. As during the first year there was sort of like switch over between producers. Derek Sherwin produced Spearhead from Space, but then had to go work on another show, but he had very much laid down a lot of the groundwork for that series, so Barry Letts basically had to follow along the lines of that for the most part. So this is very much his proper start here with Doctor Who. Terrance Dicks had been around during the first, towards the end of the Troughton years, so sort of like he helped Barry Letts get into this, and together they sort of like started to define their own golden age of Doctor Who. And you know, golden age depends what you think of it as. Everyone has their own different opinion really, but you know, quite a lot of people, especially sort of like during the 90s, early 2000s, when John Pertwee was the Doctor, this was sort of like the era really, with Joe Grant as the main companion and whatnot, and that was all very popular at that time. But anyway, looking at the cover now, we have Terror of the Autons written at the top there, and you have a rather nice cover design right there with an Auton. You have the radio telescope, you have the bus that the Autons use, and you've also got the Doctor and Joe and the Deadly Daffodil. PG, some may disagree with that as a rating, but looking on the spine here we have Terror of the Autons once again. Going to the rear now, we have standard stuff here, all your special features listed there. Blurb, written by Robert Holmes, one of the greats, who also created the Autons the previous year with Terror of the Autons, just the one disc there. No, sorry, not Terror of the Autons, Spearhead from Space, and as we were saying, just the one disc there. And now going for the booklet, we have the front right there, the insides here, and finally the rear, and it is a 4-parter. So despite the Autons being the titular monsters, they're not really featured as much as they were in their first story, Spearhead from Space, as instead this story is far more about the rivalry between the Master and the Doctor, and setting that up, which would then go on to appear throughout the whole of the 8th season, very much. And that's an interesting experiment, having the Master in each story. Terrence Dicks admitted that it wasn't the best idea in hindsight now. I think Barry Letts has as well. But at the same time, I'm glad they did, to be honest, because given that Roger Delgado? Who the hell am I on about? Roger Delgado had an untimely departure, and it's good to have as much of him as the Master as possible here. And that's it's very good that we have sorry about that. It's good that we have the amount of stories that we do have with him. Shame we couldn't have had more. Shame we couldn't have had an end to his Master, rather than just the way he sort of like walks out at the end of Frontier in Space. But nevertheless, it's nice that we did have as much as we did, and never take things for granted, especially in this case here. And I think like many, he is my favourite incarnation of the Master. No one has come close yet. Well, maybe Alex McQueen. He has done a marvellous job on Big Finish. But other than that, Roger Delgado is the supreme incarnation of the Master. He has that wonderful suave sensibility that just really is magnificent, and really does fit the Master well. And it's interesting seeing how that plays out in this story, how despite the Master being the villain of the piece and the Doctor being the hero of the piece, the Master's just so suave and nice about it for the most part. He sort of like takes over a factory just through sheer charm alone, and a bit of hypnosis along the way. But the Third Doctor, on the other hand, is sort of like bumbling about, calling everyone an imbecile, making jokes about military intelligence being a contradiction in terms, and all that stuff which we love the Third Doctor for. Admittedly, it is a bit much in this story, and I sometimes do feel that it goes a bit far, such as the scene where the Brigadier's just sort of like running through a list of different things, and the Doctor's just like, well, I thought that would be obvious. Arguably it does go a bit too far during those scenes, but I understand what Robert Holmes was trying to do here. He's very much trying to make a contrast between the two characters, and despite one of them being good and one of them being evil, they're not sort of like one's not as good as you may think, and one's not necessarily as evil as you may think, and that very much helps us to fall in love with both characters, as especially in the Master's case, having this downright evil character who sort of like shows no remorse at killing people, and naturally so, that's what we love him for. But at the same time, he's just so charming about it that you can't help but instantly love his character, really. And so that is very very nice there.
Hello, Doctor, is that you?
Who is this? What do you want?
Simply to say goodbye, Doctor.
Jo Grant is next up, being this is a companion introduction story for her. And Liz Shaw, the previous companion, did sort of like disappear, really. She sort of had no goodbye at the end of Inferno, then suddenly at the start of this story the Doctor has a new assistant turn up on his doorstep, and you have the Brigadier saying that Miss Shaw went back to Cambridge, and that she remarked that the Doctor needed someone just to hand him his test tubes and tell him how brilliant he is. And as the Brigadier says, Jo Grant will fulfil that function admirably, and she very much does. And she's a bit of a klutz at the start here, but it very much helps with her character development along the way to sort of like start off with this flawed character. She sort of like gets caught by the Master because she knocks over a couple of crates or whatever, and you have these very interesting qualities in her, which she starts off as quite a young girl, quite reckless, but then over the course of her 3 years grows into quite a remarkable young woman, really. And it's very interesting how she develops like that, and I think she's not given as much credit as she deserves as a companion, because she truly did grow a lot and change a lot, despite people accusing the classic era of just having screaming companions there to just look sexy, really. And yes, Jo Grant did look sexy, but at the same time, she fulfilled a lot of practical purpose and developed very well as a character. She has some of the best character development in the whole of Doctor Who, not just Classic Who, the whole of Doctor Who. She really did. She really is a remarkable companion, very well played by Katie Manning. And I'm just praising her now because I don't think she gets as much credit as she does. And not just Katie Manning, the actress, but also the character, the writers behind that. Everyone who went into creating this marvellous character did a good job with her. And it's interesting to think that the original idea was just to have a dumbed down companion, because while they did like Elizabeth Shaw and while she was a good character, at the same time, the idea behind it was that because she was a scientist, they wouldn't really need to, they needed to explain to the audience the sciencey parts of it, which wasn't too easy when you just had two scientists talking. You need someone to sort of like relate a bit more to the audience. That's what Jo Grant was, and she was, initially she was more relatable than Liz Shaw. Would I have liked them to have kept Liz Shaw? I don't know. I do love Liz Shaw. She's a great character as well, and well, I may not necessarily agree with those points of view. I can see where they're coming from with sort of like Jo Grant being dumbed down so that the Doctor can explain things to her, and at the same time the audience. At the same time, I'm happy we got Jo Grant out of this, even though we did lose Liz Shaw. I don't know, maybe they could have kept both of them for Series 8. I'm not sure she would have fitted with the style, especially Terra the Autons style. But she could have at least had a departure scene in this, sort of like her last day. She's already decided to go, and she's just like leaving, then has one last case or something with Terra the Autons at the same time. Jo Grant's brought in. I don't know, can't change the past now. Just throwing ideas into the wind, really. Ideas that will never come to anything because it's already set in stone. But yeah, it's, I don't know, it's just the way things ended up being, really. And ultimately I am happy with the way they turned out, and I'm glad that we did have a good amount of time with Liz Shaw, and then we had a great time with Jo Grant as well, seeing her character develop from the young girl she started as. Now for the Autons in this story, and this is where things get a lot more creative in terms of plastic, because we have the shop window dummies during Spearhead from Space, but here we get to see a lot more of sort of like the uses of the Nestenes and the plastic and whatnot. You have the daffodils, which you can see on the cover right there, which sort of like fire the spray onto the mouths. But then there's also quite a bit of other gruesome stuff going on there as well. You've got the chair which suffocates someone, and quite a few other different methods of death in there as well. But you've also got the classic Auton lowering half of its arm and then opening fire on anyone who gets in their way. And that is very interesting at the same time. And of course we have the doll, which did get accused of being terrifying and scaring children. And there was also the policeman incident where it was apparently making children lose their faith in their local policemen and whatnot, and undermining their protectiveness over children and whatnot. I guess that might not have been phrased as well as I intended it to be. But the policeman thing, I can understand that. I can see where they're coming from with that. The doll thing, not so sure about the complaints on that though. But yeah, it's nice to see them pushing the boundaries in this story nevertheless. And very much the Letts and Dicks era isn't really well known for this sort of like horror aspect as much as the Philip Hinchcliffe era was, and the heat that took from the different people in the press and whatnot for being too frightening for children. But it's Doctor Who. It's supposed to be scary at the same time as being fun, and while the Doctor's there, it sort of like adds that protective barrier, really. I think the Doctor is a very unique character that it sort of like reminds children watching that it's going to be okay nevertheless. Despite the fact that some scary stuff does go on, I think the Doctor has a unique way about him, especially the third Doctor as well. How he takes it all in his stride. It does very much help to set the children at ease while being terrified as well, at least in my experience, I guess, from when I was younger. You know, I guess everyone has their own individual experiences, but that's just my thoughts on that, and a little bit of commentary on horror in Doctor Who and what role it plays. So yes, the plot of Terror of the Autons may be simple, but you know, it's much more about the Master trying to kill the Doctor, and you know, I love it for that. It's just setting up their rivalry, really. And you know, you have the Master keeps trying to kill the Doctor, but you know, he's not getting infuriated when it fails. He's just sort of like thinking, well, I'll just have to try better next time then, won't I? And sort of like, you always feel that he would be disappointed if the first or second attempt worked, really. And he does say sort of like, the bomb is just a greetings card, really. And you know, there's not really much purpose to the Master going off after the Doctor, really. It doesn't really add much to the Nestene's plan to take over. But, you know, nevertheless, it's just sort of like him having a bit of fun while he's here, sort of like toying with the third Doctor. And I think that works quite well. One thing I don't like about this story, though, well, there are quite a few things, but the main problem I have is that ending when a Master suddenly turns on the Nestenes after the Doctor just says, well, if we're finished, then you're finished too, and the Master's just like, nonsense, I helped them to come here, and it's just like, do you really think that thing will distinguish between us and them and whatnot? And then the Master just goes, oh my god, you're right, well, let's quickly fling them out into space. And it's a bit clunky the way that was done, I guess. The writing wasn't the best there. Maybe something else could have been done. Maybe it was sort of like try and show that the Master does have a good side or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's just the way that was handled. I'm not sure whether it was writing alone or the way it was directed or anything, or the way it was cut. But, you know, it all just doesn't come together for me, really, and that is quite disappointing, as, you know, it is the big resolution of the story. And, you know, if you have a bad ending, then it does sort of like loom over the entire story, really, because you start to think, well, what's the point in that? I've gone on this journey with these characters, and then the ending was a bit naff. And, yeah, admittedly, we did have a nice final battle and whatnot, and the ending itself, other than that element of it, wasn't too bad. Nevertheless, it does sort of get on my nerves a bit, that bit, and I know it gets on other people's nerves also. Overall, despite its flaws, I do get a large amount of enjoyment out of Terror of the Autons. It is a very enjoyable story, very good start for the Master, loads of wonderful stuff going on all over the place. You have the circus, and you know, you have the radio telescope and whatnot, and it all ties together very nicely to create a very enjoyable story. And you know, it's available as part of the Mannequin Mania set, which also includes the special edition of Spearhead from Space, and that's the only way to get it on DVD, unfortunately. I guess you can probably find it on eBay separately, and then also you can get the VHS if you really want to go back that far. It's also on BBC Store and everything, so you know, there are other ways to watch it, and I think it also shows up on the Horror Channel occasionally. But you know, I like DVDs, that's my way to go with this, so that's why I have this set, and a great set it is too. So yes, I would recommend picking up this set. The story itself, Terror of the Autons, comes highly recommended on its own as well. 8 out of 10 I think is going to be my rating for that one. So, thank you all for watching this review, everyone, and I will see you all next time with the review of Torchwood More Than This. But until then, bye everyone.
I came to warn you. An old acquaintance has arrived on this planet.
Who the heck are you?
I am usually referred to as the Master.
Death is always more frightening when it strikes.